Commerce Next began as an event focused exclusively on customer acquisition. It's really in our DNA. We have since expanded into other areas, and customer acquisition still remains a critical topic because you can't grow without adding new customers. And cost-effectively finding new customers is a moving target. Shopper behaviors are changing, and there's new platforms, there's new channels, media prices are continuing to change, technology is improving, giving more opportunities to do different things. So that's why we're having this conversation on the stage today, on our main stage, and I'm excited to have Sheryl Goldstein. She's a Chief Growth Officer at IAB. If you're not familiar with them, they are a trade association that focuses on interactive advertising. They do a lot of research and they set standards, so they have a lot of insight into what channels are being used, what's going up, what's going down. Here to join Sheryl is Marc Mathies, SVP of Data Technology at Vericast, one of our sponsors, Deanna Bershad, Director of Performance Marketing at Chewy, and Linh Calhoun, CMO at replacements.com. So please give a nice welcome to this next panel.
Hello, I've got my Barbie power suit on today, so I feel very confident. Hi everybody, I'm Sheryl. I'm very excited to have this discussion with you guys today. So if we can, let's just do a quick around, a little bit about your role in your company. So Scott already told you about the IAB, so I won't repeat that, but why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about your role, Marc, and your company.
Sure, good morning. My name is Marc Mathies, and I'm an SVP of Marketing Technology at a company called Vericast. And I guess the best way to describe us is we've spent the past 80 years helping with customer acquisition for our clients, about 13,000 of them and counting today. I am also general manager of our newest product called NextDrive, which is our new marketing platform that helps our clients bring together their disparate first-party data from all the different sources, CRM, point-of-sale systems, loyalty platforms, into one common view of a customer. We help them consolidate that into that usable, activated view that we can apply our dedicated proprietary data to, and then help them activate audiences with measured marketing programs that can ultimately drive recurring positive results. Happy to be here today. I'll be answering the questions a little bit differently than my co-panelists in that I represent the voice of the customers that we work with and that we're talking to on a regular basis, where they're representing specific brands. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deanna Bershad. I'm the Director of Performance Marketing at Chewy. I assume most people know what Chewy is here. There's a huge love for pets out in the industry. And we are currently working on launching vet clinics across the country. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Awesome.
Good morning, everyone. Linh Calhoun. I represent replacements.com, and as the CMO, I am responsible for all things marketing and e-commerce. For over 43 years, Replacements has archived and preserved everything tableware, collectibles in a ginormous database represented in our huge facility in North Carolina. We have, since day one, really focused on customer first, providing one-to-one communication about the patterns and pieces that you, as our customer, would be interested in. And as we move forward, maintaining relevancy, reinforcing the education of all things tableware, and encouraging people to use their good stuff every day is really a focus. And how do we expand our core audience to new demographics and really utilize technology in an efficient and effective way?
Fantastic. So we're here to talk about customer acquisition. So let's talk a little bit first about key strategies that you're using today. Obviously, search, social has been a steady for most brands. Amazon marketing. What things outside of that are you finding helpful in discovering new customers and building new customer relationships? Anything pop out?
Yeah, so I previously was at a company called Pretty Litter, former colleague in the front row, thank you for your support. One of our biggest channels there was podcast. So we originally started with a budget of $300 and was like, how am I going to buy anything with $300? Like, I need 30,000, 300,000 to test. Like, this is a very small budget. So we started targeting on podcasts true crime, and have never seen such explosive growth before. If you are targeting educated women with a high household income, you can find them on true crime podcasts.
Women 40 plus are obsessed.
It's aspirational for us.
Especially the ones where the
yes.
women are killing their husbands. Just warning, okay?
It was amazing. So we went from a $300 buy to over $1 million a year, being the leading pet product advertiser, and we basically owned true crime. So My Favorite Murder, Crime Junkie, all the big shows. But it's great with that audience because they are very, very loyal to the host and to the podcast. So it's great when you have a personal endorsement of a podcast host that somebody listens to every week and is like, I absolutely love this product, you have to go buy it. It's invaluable. So that was something that we really were able to scale over about a 3-year period.
Fantastic. Lynn, have you discovered some new avenues?
Well, we will be investing in podcast advertising in the upcoming months and testing that out in a very specific way. But we have really expanded into connected TV and utilizing video being a place for us to be top of mind, a place where discovery can happen in both new customer acquisition as well as reminders of retargeting. So connected TV for us as a very viable and important component of our digital strategy has really evolved, and we continue to invest in.
That's great. In fact, I think what I'll do is show a quick slide from the IAB. We've done a ton of research around where consumers are spending time and then where ad spend is going, if it's following where consumers are going. And so just some quick data points. I hope everyone can see this slide. Yes, you can. Okay. So CTV, right, is, since 2020 is up 66%. Of course, a lot of that was during COVID, where people at home. But streaming is big, and it's just getting bigger. More consumers are spending time there. We're expecting another 7% increase in 2025. Podcasts, to your point, Deanna, over 135 million monthly podcast listeners, and this is a very engaged audience, and also a great place to find millennials and Gen Z, or as I like to say, Zennials. They're very connected to the podcast genre. Gaming is another high growth area. There's over 200 million gamers. 2 out of every 3 Americans do some kind of gaming, and that's also a very big area for women over 40. Words with Friends, Wordle, those kind of games. Like, people think of gaming as just the hoodie kid in the basement shooting, their friends, but it's actually much bigger than that. And then, of course, the creator marketplace, which we'll get into a little bit more. High level of interest in this area. It's one of the fastest growing areas. Faster than consumers are engaging even more than they are with more traditional studio content. And then, of course, e-commerce is expected to hit $1.2 billion in 2024. So you could see these are the kind of high growth areas, so areas that you may want to consider if you're not already investing in these areas as a place to discover new customers. And if you look at ad spend by these different channels too, you can see that folks are catching on that CTV is a very addressable medium and a great way to kind of move outside of just your social platforms. Of course, social media is still garnering more interest, paid search, podcast, et cetera. So you can see the digital platforms are the ones on the rise at the expense of linear and other more traditional media. So the things that you're doing seem to be in line with where consumers are going. And let's talk a little bit about the creator marketplace. So you mentioned podcasts. What about other types of creators? And yesterday I was talking to a few brands, and it seems like one strategy is to do micro buys. Like, instead of trying to go with 1 or 2 bigger player that has 1 million, 2 million followers who are now getting very pricey, you go with 100 smaller players that have very specific interests that relate to your brand, and they create content for you. Is that a strategy you're using? And how has that worked for you?
Yeah, so we do use a lot of influencers, and we do use a mix of big, mid, and micro influencers. I started my career at Guthy-Renker selling Proactive, and testimonials is like today's influencer program. Right. It's the same thing that we've been doing for years. Mm-hmm. Instead of Justin Bieber slinging Proactive, it's now a dog selling dog food. So it's the same thing. We use influencer content across all channels. So it's no longer just in social media. we're using that content in direct mail pieces and email pieces, using it as more of a testimonial and a first-party endorsement, similar to the way we look at podcasts as well.
And that's a great way to acquire new customers because fans of those influencers start following their lead, which is leading to you.
And we've noticed on the social platforms, the optimal creative mix is studio produced plus lo-fi UGC influencer content. So it sort of works hand in hand. So I've been able to sort of book a lot of influencer media against the creative spend as we're using it across lots of channels.
And that's interesting that you say that because we have done research on how people connect with social content versus studio content. And what we find is social content is preferable for a one-on-one, I'm interested in.
It's that emotional
Taking care of
connection
my
that you can
pets,
make.
You know, fandom around China, you know, and collectibles. But the studio content is where I sit down to watch a show with my family. You know, it's much more sit back, relax, and then, you know, so there's room in your mix for both.
Yes, absolutely.
What about you, Lynn?
I would say very similar in terms of curating very specific content that we produce and develop that tell that story about both the brand and our differentiator, while also showcasing and sharing stories directly from our customers, so the testimonials. And we know that our core customer base are advocates of our brand, and being able to incorporate those testimonials in our communications through our social media very similarly, and aggregating that to really share that. And we are starting to really utilize that in collecting stories from our customers and trying to figure out a way to better spread that information out there.
And the other thing that we have found about the creator marketplace is the speed to purchase. Like the whole path to purchase can get easily compressed. So it used to be this very linear thing. If you're still thinking of your path to purchase as a linear experience, you got to like get with it because that's not how people engage with brands anymore. And if you work with a creator, you can go from I know nothing about this brand to I'm buying right now in one swoop, one click. So I think it's also a great way to drive sales.
Yeah, and it's a very quick way to earn trust with the customers, especially if you're finding an influencer that they're loyal to.
Okay, so anything to add on the creator, please? I think it's a great option for people.
Yeah, I mean, what I can tell you from our standpoint, I can't tell you about the tactics, which those sound very exciting, but what I can tell you is the demand has driven for us over the years. We built an influencer practice about 5 years ago, and then we added to that a paid social component, so those groups operate together. That practice has grown with double-digit growth within our business, so I think that speaks to the demand for needing to be able to reach these either both social and influencer creative audiences in general. So it's been quite a wild ride. It was more than we expected, and it's been, I guess, not surprising.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a high growth area for a reason because it really works. While we're talking to you, Marc, talk a little bit. We wouldn't have a conversation if we didn't talk about privacy and how that's changing, your ability to use data, which also impacts how you can find and connect with new customers. Your platform is designed to help brands navigate that. You have, I don't know how many, 1,300 target segments that you can leverage, 24 patents, and you work with 15,000 clients, so that's pretty significant. How does your platform work, and how do you work with clients to make sure you're in a privacy-safe way of leveraging data?
Yeah, well, it starts with compliance. So first off, our platform is built, so the DNA of our company, a good 50% of the revenue that comes into our company comes through the financial institution market, and there's very specific governed bodies that make you have to follow certain levels of compliance. So we already come into this at with a certain level of attention to detail around being able to handle a customer's data. We've been doing it for decades, being entrusted to work with their data. So, of course, all the data on what the technology can do for us, make sure the data is tenanted and separated from each other. It's safe. We're able to identify pieces of data that might have to be removed very quickly so we can respond to those kind of actions that might come in. But more importantly, the challenge has been around the way the data is sourced And there are some technologies that can help with that, but for the most part, there's a lot of education that has to happen. So we end up working with our clients to talk about things like consent agreements. And when you capture, so first off, there's two types of data in this space now, what we call zero-party data, which is a newer term, which is the data that customers give us freely. So you can expect that to be the type of data that a customer enters into a loyalty form when they're first signing up for the platform. It's what you would expect and what we would previously call personal data: name, address, phone number, preferences that they might have. So the scrutiny that's placed on that zero-party data right now by a few governments in different states is around the explicit consent for how you're going to use that data. What am I using it for? Does the person signing up for it know their data is going to be used? So there's movements going forward for standardization of those consent agreements across the industry to be able to do that in a very ethical way. So recommendation is make sure you are ethically sourcing that data. Just having the check the box, read my terms and conditions is no longer really an acceptable way of going forward. You have to be very explicit in how you do that.
Yeah, this is an area that we're very dialed into at IAB. I think right now we're up to about 18 states that have their own privacy regulation and more to come. And we're working very hard in DC to try and get a national privacy so that you don't have to pick and choose what states you're going to make your products available in, because compliance across all is going to be very, very challenging, especially for small businesses. So how are you working to make sure you're honoring first-party data privacy as brands? Do you have like a strategy in place? And
yeah, I mean, Chewy, we leverage all of our internal data. It's amazing what you can ask people about their pets, and they will tell you. Like, they will tell you what their favorite TV shows are, what their favorite, anything is. So for us, it's a lot of data internally. So we usually use that to cross-sell products as opposed to looking at leveraging third-party data.
Lynn?
I think we're working through certainly making sure that we are transparent about the process and making it easy for customers to choose to opt out or whatever it is they want to do. But staying on top of it all, to your point, in terms of each state having their own laws, having to update your terms and conditions on a regular basis, having some type of federal overarching rule would be of benefit as we work to really do the right thing for their customer, provide them with the best experience and engage with them in the most personalized and relevant way, while also respecting the fact that there's just some information that we need to continue to protect. So it is really staying on top of it, making sure that we're updating the information, protecting our with the data set, and making it transparent and easy for customers to choose and ask us to do what they need us to do with their data.
Yeah, like we're seeing that because it's getting more challenging to just use data as a way of finding customers, that now much more emphasis has to be on your creative and your messaging and finding ways to break through and more endemic buys. So being more where your customers are likely to be in a contextual relevant environment, but have a message and creative that stands out, versus we're just going to buy programmatically and try and find our customers and tenders and find people wherever they might be. So, I mean, that's what we're seeing.
Well, the one thing that we know is if you follow what the consumers want, which every survey that's been done in the last couple of years have said that we as consumers are willing to accept a certain amount of us giving data for the purpose of making our experiences better. So like what Deanna mentioned, being able to show other products that you might be interested in, building a better experience on your e-commerce site, your website is a genuine use for that data that consumers are generally accepted. So what I would say is no matter what legislation or laws are going to come, they're going to basically follow all of us as consumers and what we want and what we demand. So you're not going to be able to strip away. You can't have data privacy and then sacrifice personalization, right? The two are in conflict with each other. So there's going to have to be a line that ultimately,
I agree.
where it stops.
I think the consumers will have a say in this at some point.
Absolutely.
Did you
I
want
was
to add
thinking,
something?
when you were talking about it, it ultimately is, and it goes back to whether you're doing acquisition, retention, or repurchase, being where the customers are, and it is not a linear relationship and/or a method getting back to you. So that's where it becomes much more complex, not just in building out relevant content, exposing that content, or sharing that across all of these mediums, and then coming back to figuring out how to most effectively measure the work that's being done.
Yeah, and one interesting thing about segmentation I've noticed is using all of this data is that a lot of companies spend so much time and money figuring out exactly who you are, and then they're gonna show you the same creative and the same experience that I would show him. So what's the point of actually figuring out who you are if it's the same experience? So what we're trying to do is sort of tailor the creative, tailor the messaging and the actual experience based on the user.
Absolutely, and AI is really a tool that's helping a lot with that, and it's also helping, a lot of sites now have more advanced targeting capabilities. In other words, they're not just scanning the page for keywords and that, okay, this is a content relevant page. It's really the sentiment of the page, it's understanding the context of the content, and therefore you're getting a much more highly relevant placement than we have in the past because of AI.
Yeah, and I love the personalization. I mean, if you clear your cookies or go incognito, the type of advertising you receive is very interesting. If
That
I
would be a
log in
great
as
thing
myself
for
and
people
there's
to do.
Anthropologie's having a sale, wonderful. Like that is helpful to me as opposed to some of the advertisements I get if you're not being targeted.
I love that, but that should be a campaign, like this is what the internet could be like.
Yes, it's
you know?
fantastic. They tell me what kind of products I want to buy and everything, but it's tailored for your experience.
So in terms of growth, one of the things that we're seeing as well is the merging of online, offline. A lot of properties that started online at some point get to their growth where they say, you know what, we need a physical store. Warby Parker, perfect example. And deciding where to put that and how it's going to play out. And what we're seeing is that a lot of the physical stores now are becoming a social experience to be shared. So you see the Instagram, the decorated area within a restaurant or a store, and people are coming in and see, look, I'm here now. And so it's more of a blending as opposed to just omni-channel. How are you exploring offline as well, and how are you doing that?
So I mean, we're present across all channels, so offline's really big. In launching vet clinics, we've been using a lot of different types of marketing. So going back to direct mail is amazing because we have so much information on the customer, what they've been purchasing, their pet history, everything like that. But also using local activation. This is the first time in my career I'm doing local marketing, which is very interesting, that we have people out in the farmers markets in Florida that are talking about our vet clinics that just launched. So it's very interesting. Usually it's let's do national, let's do big television campaigns. And now we're actually doing zip code level targeting for new physical vet clinics. It's very interesting.
And even deciding to expand into vet clinics, how is that from listening to
the customers,
the customers?
Yeah, and what they want. And if you talk to people that, a lot of people aren't happy with their vets, or a lot of people have a hard time getting an appointment, so it's a natural step for Chewy.
Well, I also think because you're 24/7. I mean, I'm a big Chewy customer, a big fan, and I have to say your customer service is outstanding. I mean, anybody I mention the brand to immediately, oh, I love them. I mean, there's a high level of loyalty.
Yeah, I went to dinner last night and everybody was like, oh, I love Chewy and my dog's my life. I'm like, thank you for making my job easier. Like it's.
Well, but you definitely put an emphasis on it, the 24/7.
Absolutely.
You have like 20,000 employees.
20,000 employees, it's an $11 billion company.
Yeah.
We have a huge pharmacy, so it's only natural that we go into the standalone vet clinics. But it's definitely interesting doing a ribbon cutting in a physical clinic when I've been selling online for the last 15 years.
And Lynn, you have such an interesting business, huge collectibles, folks that are just so passionate, including your founder, started the company because he was like a geek in all these antique stores looking at China.
Still is.
So tell us a little bit about the community, how they find you, and then you have this great store, several 100,000 square feet, and it has a museum and a Great Wall of China, which is all these collectible china dishes.
I
Tell
think
us a
she's
little
just
bit
done
about
all the
that.
advertising for us right there. So if you haven't been by, we do have one showroom, which is actually our showroom and our inventory. We're all in one location. But if you want to come to the mecca of all things tableware and really see stacked to the rafters, open stock, china, crystal, silver, and collectibles, please come and visit us in McLeansville, North Carolina. We offer tours. So as you said, one of the things we have really worked to incorporate is the typical geo-targeting of in and around our showroom to drive traffic to the showroom and build awareness. We've tested events which have mixed reviews still, but when you come into our showroom and you see our plate wall that is seasonally changed, we encourage our customers to come in, take a picture, hashtag, and tag us on that. And oftentimes there is a specific group of beautiful tableware appreciators who will come in, video their visit, go through a tour where you can not only shop the showroom, explore the Great Wall of China, which is the top 500 patterns, see the inventory, walk through the rafters, and see the silver restoration happening. But what we have tried to do is both encourage people to visit us and then take snippets and create video content that really teases out and showcases those areas to remind them that we do offer all things tableware, but we offer these services, and then there's just more opportunity there. So incorporating that, using the influencers to tell the story, and then sharing that out there.
Mark, anything to add?
No, unfortunately, we don't have any. We don't have any.
You don't have a Great Wall of China.
I do not have a Great Wall of China.
So the other thing that I'm hearing here is how to grow your business by getting into ancillary areas. Like, for example, Replacements has, not only can you find a replacement for damaged pieces, missing pieces, but they will create for you, they'll fix for you, they'll recommend things for you, they have, they'll help you find collectibles. So it's like all these other ancillary things that create a very robust community. So how has that developed over time?
So Replacements has really evolved and is very focused on all things tableware. So if you don't know your pattern and you're looking for it, if you go to our website, you use our image search, it will direct you to that specific pattern, which has really engaged our consumers in a new way, helping them find their pieces. And we do have these additional services. So just, again, making sure that we're sharing that content in relevant mediums through video, social sharing. And we also are looking at expanding our categories. So we have just soft launched a new website, Ivy Page Living, and the intent there is when you come to Replacements, we truly have 11 plus million pieces of inventory across 475,000 different patterns. So it is overwhelming if you do not know your pattern. And one area we thought we have opportunity to explore is really for those customers, those consumers who have interest in tableware. Might we, one, help curate collections and show them what is possible, and then to almost give them permission and encourage them to use their good stuff every day. So the Ivy Page Living website and sub-brand is intended to really attract a younger demographic, encourage them to mix and match their own, and again, look for collections that we have pre-established for them. And we are, as a company, Replacements is looking to expand into new categories that really align with our preservation of all things antique, vintage, and those categories will look like art, table, furniture, decor, and so that is our evolution as we look to expand, not only nurturing our core customer who is a collector, but some new customers and new opportunities to buy into categories.
Mm-hmm. Deanna, okay, you mentioned the vet facilities. What's next? Where do you see growth opportunities for your brand?
I think there's just so much growth, just adding new categories into the existing site. We recently launched equine, so now we have a whole line of horse products if you'd like to buy them on Chewy.
No shortage of new animals to add.
No, I'm surprised how many lizard stuff we have and stuff like that. But I think for us, it's only natural to go into the vet clinic space because we just really want happy, healthy pets. And like you said, Chewy is very well known for their customer service. Mm-hmm. So one thing we're doing is not only providing them with vet care, but also the pharmacy needs that their pet needs, and a one-stop shop, which is sort of makes us able to compete, like you said earlier, with Amazon.
And what about, so you work with 15,000 brands. Is there something that you see that brands do that's like the number one mistake that maybe frustrates you and you're like, I wish brands would? Is there, or anybody can answer this.
I think
There's maybe a lesson learned even that you have.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, like my panelist said, it's follow the data, right? The data should tell you where you need to go, where you need to find your opportunities for growth. One of the things that we do to enable that in our NextDrive platform is when we pull all that data together, we can show it back to you in a way that makes a meaningful sense. Yes, some of it is going to help you drive smarter activations and building of audiences for advertising, but also you're going to get descriptive and predictive analytics of your own data that's going to point to, well, here's a SKU that's underdeveloped that we really should be focusing on, or here's something that's really driving demand. You find those opportunities for little pivots or little changes in your business that are going to identify growth. So the call out is follow the data, right? And find the tools and partners that are going to help you mine that data to find opportunities like building a vet clinic.
Yeah. And that also may be letting go of things that maybe got you where you are today, but are not the growth engine for tomorrow. So that's always a hard thing for companies, like, but that's always been our go-to. You know?
And it's constantly changing. Like there's new platforms emerging all the time. So it's just get out there and test everything you can. And a lot of people say, how can I test it? I only have $1,000. I've tested with $150 on platforms. So like start small, just be everywhere, because it's not as easy it used to be when I used to buy the Yahoo homepage and would target half the people in the US. Like now we've got to get very specific and just be everywhere that a consumer might see us.
Does Yahoo have a homepage anymore?
They still have that FPAT unit. That
I sold Yahoo homepage.
Oh, yeah, and that's, we would
Very
buy
efficient
AOL.
buy.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I would second that. I mean, in terms of testing and starting small, there is not, you don't need thousands of dollars. We really tested into connected TV with limited dollars, and we have doubled, tripled that investment based on what expansion or what results we have seen. So it's really, I think it's having the courage of testing and just investing in those areas, the discovery of it all. It's always changing.
So some key commerce next steps. What I'm hearing here is, first of all, create some test budgets, try new things, follow the data, but also follow the customer. Like, where are the new growth opportunities? Podcasting, gaming, et cetera. Test some of those things out. Leverage creators, they don't have to be the 1 million+ followers. It could be someone with 200,000 followers, but they speak directly to a passion point with your brand. And then also think about new product extensions, et cetera. Just listen to your customer. Let them be a guide for new avenues that you should be exploring. Anything else you guys want to add? So those are the few that I heard very clearly. No?
Sounds great.
Perfect. 0. The red light's on. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.